Welcome to Mystic Realms Recap. Please like, share, and subscribe. Enjoy today's episode.
High-tier universe, in the ruins of the crystal universe. Shwa shwa shwa. That huge, special metal material continued to crush one crystal universe after another. Each time, it was easily crushed. There was also a very strange sound that kept coming from the vicinity of these huge metal pieces. This voice was different from any language that the Snake Tribe civilization knew, but the general meaning was still very clear. End quote. Recently, more and more crystal cosmic fragments have been discarded. Those guys are too wasteful. After they've had enough fun, they throw away cosmic fragments. This technology is really disgusting. End quote. End quote. That's right. Many of these crystal universes still have living creatures. However, it's fortunate that no living creatures have escaped. Otherwise, this universe would probably be in chaos. Those inferior creatures are all very greedy, and they dare to eat anything. End quote. However, there's nothing to worry about. Those creatures from the lower universe won't be able to break through the universe barrier so easily. Moreover, this kind of thing hasn't happened for thousands of years. The crystal universe technology is also becoming more and more mature. Life forms above level 15 can't enter the lower universe, and life forms below level 15 can't even think about breaking through. End quote. I'm just afraid that the creatures in the lower universe will evolve by themselves and break through the level limit, breaking the barrier by force. End quote. What a joke. Those crystal universes are either used to imprison some defective products from high-tier universes or have their energy limited. Furthermore, they are all precisely created, so there will definitely be no accidents. Moreover, aren't there also us garbage collectors? All the problematic crystal universes will be destroyed. There will definitely be no accidents. But I keep feeling that something's wrong, but I can't tell what exactly it is. In the high-tier universe ruins, there were many such voices. However, when he looked over, he couldn't find any living creature in the direction of the sound. Of course, if other creatures from a high-tier universe came, they would be able to see the problem with a glance. This was a voice, and it actually appeared in the void. Yes, the one who said this was an ionic life form from a high-tier universe. They were like air. Their bodies did not have any form, they were just a part of the void. However, that part still had intelligence. This kind of life form was very strange, but its power was self-evident. While the ion life forms in the higher-tier universe were analyzing this, in the lower-tier universe, 9 hours passed in the blink of an eye. The universe barrier above the building Yi Bei was in had been completely opened. Boundless energy gushed out from the black hole. Centaurs. When the universe barrier was opened, all the mutated beasts were shocked to the extreme. This is unbelievable. This is unbelievable. End quote. This terrifying energy. Isn't it a little too much? End quote. I feel that there are countless powerful creatures in the high-tier universe. End quote. King, when are we going in? Countless mutated beasts could not wait any longer as they exclaimed. And Yi Bei didn't waste his time. When the universe's barrier was completely opened, his mental power domain directly extended to the entire low-level universe, and Yi Bei's voice rang out in the minds of all the mutated beasts. End quote. Everyone, the barrier of the universe has been opened. Now that everyone has the ability to move freely in the void, let's rush out with me. That place is the real universe. Where we are is just a cage. End quote. Yi Bei's voice didn't fluctuate in the slightest. However, all the creatures of the Snake Tribe civilization were extremely excited after hearing this. Yes, yes, yes. Countless creatures roared in unison. Then, the creatures charged toward the universe barrier. The universe barrier that was broken was like a black hole. While the huge amount of energy was flowing out, it also had a huge suction force. As long as the creatures of the snake civilization approached the black hole vortex, they would be immediately sucked out. Walalala. There were too many creatures in the snake civilization. After Yi Bei gave the order, countless creatures scrambled to rush into the high-level universe. King, let's go too. My king, when do we start? It's almost done. After we enter the high-tier universe, I want to devour everything there. The apostles gathered around Yi Bei and spoke one by one. All right, we can go now. After a long while, Yi Bei finally spoke. His voice was deep and deep. As soon as he finished speaking, his body rose into the air, and the apostles followed him at their fastest speed. Together, they rushed in the direction of the high-level universe vortex. Walalala. There were simply too many of them. Densely packed. When Yi Bei approached the vortex, he could feel an extremely majestic aura seeping out of it. What a terrifying energy. I feel, as long as I live in this energy, I can continue to evolve. Hurry up. The apostles were extremely excited. 1 second, 2 seconds, 10 seconds. 10 seconds later, Yi Bei and the other apostles finally broke through the universe barrier and entered the higher-tier universe. This is truly a great world. Who? After Yi Bei entered, he immediately released his mental power domain. When he saw the terrifying basic buildings in the high-tier universe and the countless super creatures in the universe, he couldn't help but sigh. The apostles who came with him also widened their eyes. But all the creatures in the high-tier universe felt an unprecedented sense of danger because of Yi Bei's arrival with the army of the Snake Tribe civilization. The playthings that he had once raised. It actually broke away from his control. It was a wonderful feeling. The moment Yi Bei led his army to a high-level universe, a commotion immediately broke out in this corner of the universe. The strength of civilizations and creatures had developed to such a level that anything that happened in this universe would be completely ignored. Not good. Something big has happened. End quote. Another creature has broken through the barrier of the crystal universe. The last time something like this happened was thousands of years ago, right? End quote. Damn it. This time, I can't let that tragedy happen again. Those low-level creatures are a group of vampires. Once they enter the universe, they can devour anything. End quote. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World, site only. Then what do we do? End quote. Let's continue to wait. The place they've appeared at is above the ruins. That universe crystal machine over there isn't a joke. Let's see how it's dealt with. End quote. All right. In the high-tier universe, the creatures were shocked, but they kept their calm. However, a cold and gloomy aura was spreading wantonly. High-tier universe, ruins. Shwa shwa. After crushing 2 more crystal universes, the giant machine, which had been running for thousands of years, suddenly stopped. As the machine stopped, the high-tier universe ruins fell silent. The ion life forms that were responsible for the maintenance of the machines also quieted down. It just so happened that they were discussing the escape of creatures in the lower universe. However, he did not expect it to really appear. Moreover, he had appeared right beside him. This kind of feeling was really very strange. However, after the initial shock, the ion life forms quickly recovered from their shock. They looked at the mutant beasts that were rushing out of the crystal universe. In an instant, the entire sky was occupied by these mutant beasts. Their bodies immediately released an extremely terrifying aura, and the space of this high-tier universe seemed to instantly form an invisible protective film. It actually blocked all the mutant beasts that were rushing out of the crystal universe. All of them were blocked. We can't let them escape. Hurry. End quote. Activate the universe's restrictions and freeze this space. End quote. All right. After the plasma life forms regained their senses, their reaction speed was extremely fast. They almost instantly froze the universe. After Yi Bei, who had flown out of a low-tier universe, and the trillions of mutated beasts arrived in a high-tier universe, he quickly discovered that there seemed to be a thin layer of protection in the void. No matter what methods he used, he couldn't penetrate it. But, at this moment, they had no interest in the thin film. The endless energy in the high-tier universe made them all boil to the extreme. End quote. Ho ho ho. This is great. This energy is simply too perfect. I feel like my body is absorbing it crazily every second. I feel like I'm about to start evolving again. End quote. End quote. So this is a high-tier universe. It's so cool. End quote. Quickly absorb the energy here. They seem to be endless. End quote. If I can stay in this universe for a while longer, I feel that my body will evolve to an unprecedented level. End quote. After countless mutated beasts entered this universe, they opened their mouths wide and their bodies turned to their largest size immediately. Not only were they swallowing crazily, but their bodies were also trying to absorb the energy as much as possible. Even Yi-Bei was feeling the same way at this moment. And NBSB, whoosh. Although he had discovered countless powerful high-level universe life forms when he released his mind power domain, he had no intention of provoking them at this time. The surrounding energy was too dense. After entering this place, Yi-Bei's mouth was also wide open as he frantically absorbed the vast amount of energy in the universe. As time passed, Yi-Bei could clearly feel that his body was becoming stronger and stronger. Every cell in his body had received an unprecedented baptism in this universe. This terrifying energy was even stronger and more powerful than when he had devoured the mechanical god in the lower universe. This feeling made Yi-Bei infatuated with it. It was as if he had returned to the pleasure of becoming a python and devouring food. End quote. This is a rare opportunity. In this high-tier universe, there are too many powerful creatures. If you want to continue living, the only way is to become stronger. Those creatures live here all year round, so their starting point is much higher than ours. We have to catch up with them. End quote. As Yi-Bei's mental power domain expanded, his voice resounded directly in the minds of all the mutated beasts. Yes. 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 The mutated beasts replied excitedly. Devouring food, obtaining a huge amount of energy, and improving one's strength must be properly grasped. Any waste of time was shameful and a great sin. So, as they answered Yi-Bei's question, the mutated beasts began to devour the food at an increasingly faster rate. The small space that was frozen by the plasma creatures and the boundless energy were being devoured by the endless mutated beasts. The energy was gradually decreasing at an unbelievable rate. Of course, even so, there was still endless energy coming from all directions. Bastard, what's wrong with these low-class creatures? A normal creature wouldn't be able to devour so much, right? End quote. They seem to be a little different. Completely different from the creatures before. There is a fundamental difference from the creatures that used to tear everything apart with their physical bodies. They are more powerful than before. End quote. End quote. We definitely can't let them leave this place. Quickly wake up the universe crusher and let them all be crushed. End quote. The ion life forms were mixed in with the mutated beasts. While avoiding their devouring, they used their special spirit transmission method to analyze the situation. Through their judgment, they quickly discovered some of the terrifying aspects of the snake tribe civilization. End quote. They can devour endlessly. All these creatures are like that. This ability may not be the most terrifying, but if there are too many of them, the balance of this high-tier universe will be broken if they escape. End quote. We have to take some measures. Did you guys notice that Flood Dragon? Just now, I felt his mental energy fluctuations. Those mental energy threads are guiding all these creatures. If I'm not mistaken, he's the leader of these creatures. We have to kill him first before we can quickly disintegrate these creatures. As the ionic life form spoke, they all stared at Yi-Bei. But, as they spoke, in less than 10 seconds, the overall creature level of the snake tribe civilization rose by 2 levels in the void. Countless creatures directly evolved to level 15, the same level as Yi-Bei. Of course, the amount of energy that the mutated beasts had devoured was far less than what Yi-Bei had absorbed. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World, site only. Even if they were on the same level, they couldn't possibly surpass Yi-Bei. However, when the snake tribe civilization's creatures improved to such a level, the ion life forms were even more dumbfounded. How long has it been? Wasn't the speed at which the creatures' rank increased a little too fast? If this continued, wouldn't the creatures from the snake civilization soon turn the entire high-tier universe upside down? Upon seeing this, the ion life forms couldn't hold it in any longer. One of the plasma creatures charged in Yi-Bei's direction without any hesitation. In a high-tier universe, a powerful energy storm was sweeping through the universe. At every moment, the void could explode due to the violent energy. At that moment, Yi-Bei was madly devouring the blood. In reality, he had long since noticed the ionic life forms hidden in the void through his spiritual force domain. He just ignored them. Yi-Bei only stopped devouring when an ionic life form appeared in front of him. And quote, "You're finally here. To be honest, this is the first time I've seen a void life form. Tell me, what do you want to do?" When the ionic life form appeared in front of Yi-Bei, Yi Lung said. As for the ionic life forms, they obviously didn't realize that Yi Bei had long since discovered them, and they even looked rather surprised. However, he quickly recovered. As a creature from an advanced civilization, he still had this mental state. End quote. Trash creature from a low-level universe, die now. This universe is not for you to stay in. End quote. The ionic life form didn't waste any time. After saying this, it immediately charged towards Yi Bei. His body didn't have any form to begin with. After he rushed to Yi Bei's side, he immediately launched an attack. As for Yi Bei's release of his mental power domain, he didn't retaliate. Instead, he carefully observed the way the ion life form attacked. After all, there were too many powerful creatures in the high-level universe. This was only the beginning. In the future, he might encounter even more powerful creatures. And at this moment, Yi Bei didn't feel much threat from this ionic life form, which meant that it couldn't hurt Yi Bei yet. This ion life form had a very unique way of attacking. After he launched his attack, the surrounding space seemed to have been completely frozen. At that moment, Yi Bei felt as if his body had been bound, and he couldn't even make a single move. Who? At the same time, the surrounding void matter was desperately drilling into Yi Bei's ecosystem. After seeing the situation, Yi Bei had a general understanding of this creature. By controlling the void, he could implant the void into a living being's body and then use that substance to explode the living being. This kind of method could probably cause a destructive blow to more than 99% of living creatures. Even mechanical creatures were no exception. However, this method just happened to be harmless to Yi Bei. This was because, at that moment, Yi Bei could clearly sense that when those things entered his body, they were immediately completely integrated by his infinite devouring power and turned into pure energy that helped him evolve. The ionic life form didn't realize this at all, and it continued to inject that terrifying substance into Yi Bei's body. 1 minute. Yes, it lasted for a full minute. When he was done, his voice was full of contempt and ridicule. End quote. Inferior creature, I thought you were very powerful. It seems that you have disappointed me. As the leader of this inferior creature, your strength is only SOSO. Now, a large amount of plasma has been integrated into your body. However, I can give you a chance to choose. Oh. Upon hearing this, Yi Bei's interest was piqued. What chance? Yi Bei said calmly. End quote. Issue an order for all the creatures that came with you to commit suicide, and then become nutrients for this giant machine. If you do it well, I can consider letting you live, or even give you a chance to survive in a high-tier universe. After all, it's not strange for 1 or 2 creatures from the lower planes to appear occasionally. End quote. The ionic life form's voice was high and mighty, and when it said this, it sounded as if it was offering Yi Bei charity. However, he didn't realize how ridiculous his words were to Yi Bei. They all have self-awareness and intelligence. It's fine to let them evolve, but to let them die. Do you think they will agree? Yi Bei said this on purpose. He was deliberately stalling for time so that the Snake Tribe civilization would have more time to absorb the energy. Although this ionic life form couldn't cause him any harm, Yi Bei faintly felt a sense of danger from the giant machine. However, the machine seemed to be recovering and needed some time before it could start fighting. Otherwise, what Yi Bei was facing now was definitely not an ionic life form, but this terrifying machine. You don't have a choice. Either you die now, and they all die in exchange for your life, the ion life form said. At the same time, other ionic life forms also appeared in the surroundings. After thinking that Yi Bei had been controlled, they relaxed a lot. However, they were still very cautious. After all, there were too many creatures in the snake civilization. If Yi Bei died, it would be troublesome for those creatures to choose another leader. In addition, even though the space had been frozen, the time limit was about to end. If he couldn't deal with them within this period of time and let the creatures of the snake civilization escape, it would be too difficult to capture them one by one. High grade, and the surroundings were too big. There were countless blind spots. Moreover, there were vast amounts of energy resources everywhere. As long as the creatures from the snake civilization were alive, they were a threat to other creatures in the high-tier universe. They were stealing resources, and this was something that the so-called high-tier civilizations would never allow. I'm sorry, But I don't choose either of these options. I can give you two choices. Reveal your original form and obediently tell me about the situation in the high-tier universe, or become my food. Only when the energy in this space had become thinner and thinner did eBay open his mouth and speak calmly, his eyes flashing with killing intent. Eh. It was obvious that the ionic life forms that had been frantically transferring terrifying energy into Yi Bei's body had never expected Yi Bei to say something like that. For a moment, they were stunned in the air. However, he quickly reacted. Then go to hell. He was not polite at all. It frantically controlled the ions, trying to tear Yi Bei to pieces. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World, site only. But when he completely erupted, he was surprised to find that Yi Bei was still floating in the void, still absorbing the majestic energy of this high-level universe at all times. There was no reaction at all. In fact, he even had a faint feeling that the Yi Bei in front of him seemed to have become twice as powerful as before. You? Why didn't you blow it up? The ion life form's voice trembled as it finally said this. High-tier universe, in the ruins. The giant machine was still being resurrected, and more majestic energy was being released from the mechanical body. As for the endless creatures of the snake race civilization, almost all of them had already left the crystal universe. At this moment, they were still frantically devouring the energy around them. When Yi Bei was facing off against those ionic life forms, those life forms didn't notice him. And quote, I'm sorry, but you should think about this question slowly. Now it's my turn. End quote. Yi Bei's voice was cold. As he spoke, his eyes were fixed on one of the ionic life forms. Yi Bei wasn't sure of the creature's level, but he could sense that if he could devour it, his strength would increase again, and even his creature level would increase. Bullet time. Therefore, Yi Bei immediately spoke without any hesitation. These ionic life forms could freeze the surrounding space, and Yi Bei's bullet time could do the same. When he activated bullet time, in the next moment, Yi Bei felt his body relax, and the restraints around him disappeared. Roar. With a low growl, the golden body charged in the direction of the ion life form without any hesitation. He opened his mouth. It revealed its sharp teeth and bit down on the living ion. End quote. Idiot. I'm a void creature. My body is the void and can change at will. I'm invisible and have no body. Do you want to eat me too? Although he had activated bullet time, the frozen space only made everything around him equal. Yi Bei and the ionic life form both returned to their normal speed. Therefore, when the ionic life form saw that Yi Bei was actually trying to devour it, it still looked at him with disdain. In the face of Yi Bei's attack, he didn't have any intention of dodging. In his opinion, if Yi Bei really devoured him, he could enter Yi Bei's body, and as long as he expanded his body a little, Yi Bei would definitely die. Roar. Yi Bei didn't care that much. He completely ignored the voice of the ion life form. It opened its mouth and bit down on the plasma life form. Poochie. It did bite, and even made a sound. However, the moment it bit down, the ionic life form still didn't show any signs of worry. However, when it entered Yi Bei's mouth, the ionic life form suddenly felt that something was wrong. After being swallowed, it tried its best to control its body, only to discover that it couldn't control it at all. It was as if an extremely mysterious force was pulling him. What's going on? His voice was filled with surprise. When some of the ion life forms around him heard his voice, they also felt that something was amiss. When they looked at Yi Bei, they became even more vigilant. End quote. This creature can devour everything, even the void. Our void form doesn't have much effect on him. If we're devoured by him, we'll be immediately transformed into a part of his energy. End quote. Some of the ionic life forms finally reacted. They saw their companion being devoured and gradually losing all signs of life. Then, they saw Yi Bei's body release an even more powerful force. With their intelligence, they instantly understood what was going on. Quick, stay away from this guy. His strength is beyond our expectations. End quote. It seems like we can only wait for the machine to wake up. During this period, everyone should continue to work hard to stabilize this space. We can't let these trash creatures escape. End quote. The remaining ion life forms said as they fled. And what happened here? Although the space was frozen. However, in the high-tier universe, almost all the living beings who were paying attention to the situation here saw it. This was especially true for the death of an ionic life form. It didn't even have the strength to resist. This gave the high-level life forms a great shock. Although there were many coincidences in the fact that the ionic life form had underestimated its enemy, there was one thing they had to admit. The techniques eBay had displayed were far beyond their expectations. Therefore, at this moment, many creatures in the high-tier universe couldn't stay calm anymore. The entire universe was occupied by a special kind of haze. End quote. Those lowly creatures are too disgusting. The tragedy from 1,000 years ago cannot happen again. The ion life forms guarding the ruins are no match for them. It seems that we have to attack. End quote. Yeah, once they come out, it'll be even more troublesome. End quote. The main thing is that there are too many of them. It's not good if they hide in some blind spots. After all, they just appeared from a low-tier universe, and their strength is only SOSO. Once they are encountered by the native creatures here, they will only end up dead. End quote. End quote. Don't forget, the lesson from 1,000 years ago is still fresh in your mind. After those creatures came to this high-tier universe, not many of them died. Instead, they caused all kinds of trouble. If it wasn't for that existence who appeared at the end and killed all those creatures, the situation of the entire high-tier universe might have changed greatly, and all the creatures would have suffered heavy losses. End quote. End quote. That's right. The creatures that appeared this time are even more numerous than the last time. Moreover, from the abilities that they've displayed, they're much stronger than the last time. If we leave them alone like before, the consequences will definitely be more serious. End quote. Do it. I have to take the initiative to attack. Mistakes can't be made twice. All the life forms in the high-tier universe are responsible. All right, shall we go together? The life forms that were closer to the high-tier universe junkyard all chimed in. All of them performed curved space jumps and rushed toward the high-level universe ruins. In a short period of time, there were more than 1 million of them. Moreover, the weakest of them were level 15 creatures, and even level 18 creatures were among them. With such a huge force, it seemed that they could really crush all the creatures of the snake tribe civilization to death. As these creatures advanced toward Yibei's, read latest chapters at Wuxia World, site only. Position. In that universe, Yibei, who had just devoured an ion life form, was quietly undergoing a massive transformation. To Yibei, that ion life form was definitely the best meal. At this moment, he even felt that his body was enveloped by an unprecedented energy. The genes in his body were also quietly undergoing some subtle changes. Even Yibei himself was amazed by this change in the ruins of a high-tier universe. As the large number of ionic life forms fled into the distance, Yibei remained coiled in the air, not moving an inch. But at this moment, Yibei's heart was like a stormy sea. The impact of this ionic life form on his body was simply too great. After devouring it, Yibei first felt a warm current spreading through his body. After the warm current mixed with his blood, he instantly had a comprehensive understanding of this high-tier universe. A high-tier universe was similar to a low-tier universe. On the surface, this universe seemed to be endless. The difference between this place and the lower universes was that the resources here were also endless. This was because they were constantly absorbing the essence of the lower universes, and the energy nourished the creatures in the higher universes, directly increasing the gap between the universes. In this universe, the weakest life form was level 15, and the newly born life forms were all level 10. As long as they stayed in this universe for a year without doing anything, those new life forms would reach level 15. This kind of starting line was many times better than those lower-class creatures. After all, Yibei had devoured so many living creatures and so much energy, but he was only level 15 now. The gap between them was really huge. Other than that, there were also terrifying level 30 life forms in the universe. It was a pity that there was too little information about the level 30 life form in the memory of the ion life form. It was only a legend. However, just based on this memory alone, Yi-Bei was certain of one thing. That level 30 life form was definitely a transcendent existence. If it wanted to, it could even completely crush this high-tier universe into pieces. It seems that I'm still too weak. There are too many creatures here that can pose a threat to the snake civilization. After we escape from this spatial restraint, we must spread out and hide. Yi-Bei secretly thought to himself, after fusing with an ionic life form. At that moment, Yi-Bei felt that his body could actually turn into nothingness. This change also gave Yi-Bei a way to break through the frozen space. Everyone, there are too many powerful creatures in the high-tier universe. We are facing an unprecedented threat, and if we stay together, it will be easy for those creatures to have an accurate target. So, once the constraint around us is removed, everyone can move freely in the universe without any worries. It's fine as long as we can survive. When our snake civilization army has developed to a strong enough level, we will gather again. Yi-Bei said to all the mutated beasts through his mental domain. Yes. Yes. The mutated beasts all answered at the same time. As for Yi-Bei, he couldn't be bothered to chase after those ionic life forms. Crack, crack, crack. His body turned into a golden shadow and charged toward the space barrier formed by the ions at an unbelievable speed. In the next moment, countless crisp sounds rang out. The ion life forms that had distanced themselves initially wanted to strengthen their defenses and wait for the giant machine to recover. However, after the defense was broken, they were all dumbfounded. Everyone, please leave. Yi-Bei didn't waste any more time. He coldly issued another order to all the mutated beasts. Hualalalala. In an instant, trillions of creatures from the snake race broke through the restrictions in space and spread out in all directions. In the distance, the high-level space creatures that were rushing over were all stunned when they saw this. They had thought that the ion life forms would be able to resist for a while. In the end, how long had it been? Moreover, there were too many creatures from the snake civilization. After entering this universe, they not only devoured crazily but also rushed around. Perhaps some would die, but at least some would be lucky enough to survive. On this day, the high-tier universe was in an unprecedented turmoil. Yi-Bei didn't hesitate. He ignored the giant machine that was waking up. He believed that it would not be long before his power would reach an unprecedented. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World, site only. Height with the help of this energy. It wouldn't take long for it to evolve into a true dragon. And as the mutated beasts continued to expand, the range of Yi-Bei's mental power domain in this high-level universe had also increased significantly. As long as he had enough time, he would definitely become the most powerful existence in this universe. The entire show is ending.
Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe.